Welcome to Red Eyes Radio. The website is redeyescreations.com. My name is Henrik Palmgren, and this is a special transmission. We have an extra treat for you today and a very important subject matter. We have MEP, that's Member of the European Parliament, Nigel Farage, with us on the line for a special interview on the state of the EU and the Lisbon Treaty. I just want to mention here that Nigel is one of the founding fathers of UKIP, the UK Independence Party, and is one of the only dissident voices in the European Parliament. Understandably, he's very busy, and we only have about 30 minutes with Nigel today, and I want to squeeze in as much as possible to help spread the word about the state of the EU and the extremely important upcoming Irish vote on the Lisbon Treaty. So let's dive into it right away here. Nigel Farage, thank you very much for coming on the program with us here.
Not at all, not at all.
Okay, so let's go into it. The Lisbon Treaty, the EU constitution, pretty much revamped and renamed to a treaty. How have the leaders of the European Union managed to get this through without asking the people of the European Union what they think? And what does this say about the current state of the EU, you think?
Well, they've done it by deception. I mean, it was perfectly clear that when the French voted no, they killed it, and when the Dutch voted no, they buried it, and that should have been the end of the whole project. And what they did was they got rid of the dreaded C word. We can't call it a constitution, we'll just call it a treaty. Of course, the reality was that virtually every single thing that had been in the constitution was in the Lisbon Treaty. And they did this, and they rammed it through their own national parliaments in France and in Britain and in Sweden and everywhere else, without giving people the opportunity to express an opinion in a referendum. And I think the whole thing was appalling, frankly. The only country in which they couldn't avoid it was Ireland, who had the referendum. And, you know, before the official result had even been announced, there was Manuel Barroso, the President of the European Commission, saying that the Irish must not stop this treaty. And my view is that what the European Union has shown itself to be through these three rejections, it's shown itself to be an organisation that is now so extreme, that is now so nationalistic, that it doesn't even care whether it's taking the people with it. It doesn't give a damn for the basic principles of democracy. They have decided that we're going to have a European state, and that's the end of it. And frankly, to me, history shows us that this is very, very difficult indeed, that you cannot impose a new nationality, you cannot impose a new state upon peoples without their consent, and that the modern European Union does not have the consent of the European peoples.
That's right. And again here, the Irish are going to have a vote again now then, October 2nd, if I'm not mistaken. If we're outside Ireland and our country, as you said, already has ratified this constitution that they call a treaty, is there anything we can do to help to stop this?
Well, you can cross your fingers.
Oh, God.
You can cross your fingers. And I'm quite sure that there'll be various no campaigns springing up in the next few weeks. And if one or two people from Sweden went across and lent them a hand, I'm sure they'd appreciate it. I mean, really, you know, when the Irish vote, they're not just voting on the future of democratic accountability in Ireland, they're voting on the future of democratic accountability for 26 other countries as well. So This is a very, very important referendum indeed.
Do you have any suggestions to how we can help provide the right information to the Irish people before the election in order to kind of help them make the right decision here?
I mean, this decision, of course, is up to the no campaigners in Ireland as to how they want to play it. But one of my suggestions to them would be to get representatives from as many European countries as possible to turn up in Ireland and to make the point that this is really an historic event and battle, and that they're voting for all of us, and they must not feel that somehow they're isolated and on their own.
What do you think the Lisbon Treaty will mean to us if it indeed is implemented?
Well, what it means, it marks not just a further transfer of power and potential power to the European Union, it actually changes the European Union itself. I mean, up until now, it's been a treaty-based organization, and its legitimacy was because the member states effectively lent their authority to the European Union. What this treaty does, or constitution as we really should call it, even if they won't use the word, we should.
Yes.
What it actually does is legally, it changes the European Union into an entity in its own right, into a state, effectively, that is able to sign its own treaties, into an organization that within a few years will have complete control over areas like policing, over areas like prison sentencing, areas that traditionally the European Union has not been able to touch before. And it also sets up a situation whereby it'll be very difficult, nigh impossible in future, to have proper intergovernmental conferences, to have the prospect of any referendums at all, because the enabling clause within this treaty allows the heads of government in secret to cede to the European Union any ability to make decisions that they choose in that room. So it really marks a departure from a time when each treaty had months and months of conferences of governments and then in some cases referendums, and it sweeps all that aside and allows the EU in the future to do pretty much what it wants to do.
Yeah, that's right. And I wonder if you can say something about, I'm sure you heard about the Galvin report and the kind of corruption within the EU, and especially what it seems like among the MEPs.
Well, I mean, look, wherever you have remote government, you will always have the temptation to fiddle money. And I think the institutions of Brussels and Luxembourg and Strasbourg, I mean, they are remote from people. I mean, I very much doubt there are many voters in Britain or Sweden who feel closely connected to the workings of the Commission or the Parliament or the Council. I mean, the best person really to talk about this isn't me, but it's my colleague Marta Andreasen.
Yes.
And just quickly, for your listeners, Marta Andreasen, a Spanish citizen, became the European Union's chief accountant back in 1999, and so she was responsible overall for a budget of 100 billion euros a year, so a very responsible and highly paid job. And within 3 years, she quit the post because there was no attempt made to reform the system. She described the whole thing as being an open invitation to fraud. And we have this extraordinary situation where the auditors for the European Union budget have now, for the last 14 years in a row, failed to give a clean bill of health to the European Union's accounts. So this is real money.
Yeah.
We're now well over 100 billion euros a year in terms of the budget. It's money that, hard-working taxpayers are pouring into these coffers, and there appears to be just no accountability whatsoever. So whichever way you look at this, I mean, we started off this interview talking about the democratic side of it and how they just ignored the referendums and how disgraceful that is, and we can move on to the financial side of it and see that there's no responsibility there either.
That's right, and we are communicating with Marta Andreasen, by the way, and we'll have her on the program at the end of August, so thank you for mentioning that. And okay, so I want to ask you, what do you think about Barroso's choice of people to lead the Commission? I think you talked about this.
Well, it struck me as being very funny that in 1999, the entire Commission had been forced to stand down in disgrace. They'd been replaced by another Commission who'd shown themselves to be incapable of reforming or changing things at all. And then in 2004, Mr. Barroso pops up and tells the world, look, I've got this wonderful team of people. And the one particular example that I referred to at the time and that I continue to refer to is the fact that the French nominee, Mr. Barrot, had himself, in the year 2000, been convicted in a French court of embezzlement, given an 8-month suspended prison sentence, and barred from public office. And he now is the commissioner in charge of criminal justice. So we have a foreign criminal deciding what foreign criminals may or may not live in Britain. I mean, the whole thing, you simply couldn't make it up.
Yeah, that's right. It's just incredible. And, I want to ask you all